Hello everybody, this is Fluke with another Kohan Duels. This time another submission from Macleod, who's been very helpful in regards to sending me these old replays that I'm not part of, I don't know the results of, and I definitely prefer casting games that um, I don't know the outcome of or have some vague recollection of. So, big help from Mac here. And this seems to be a very interesting lineup. We have the Naked one of the old goats, and he's playing Seiya. He's got a very empty map distribution here, but in the corners and just north of him, some great village generation. He's got a council town and a Haroon village, and these can be taken with very low dedication. One skeleton, or even actually a Shadeling with a Kohan can probably take it too. Um, then just north of that, we have Rhino. This is Beaver, Crazy Canine. In the tournament, some of you guys might be familiar with him. He's got a very aggressive playstyle, and Nationalist, I see that he likes to go a little heavy on their early game units. And I don't know if he'll transition out of that, but he has plenty to get here. He's got Barbarians for golds in tech, two Nationalist towns. This distribution is very favoring the north from what I can tell. A Haroon between him and his ally. Oh no, the Haroon's somewhat neutral, I suppose. And then we have, in the middle of the map, we have a Nationalist player. Forward Nationalist can be a very dangerous gen, because you don't have a whole lot to defend yourself, and you have to backsettle to your teammates. Luckily, this triangle actually should be somewhat doable. He can definitely backsettle here, and these are kind of going to help link their supply zone and give him support. Heck, they could even give him one of these villages to give him the economic boost he needs. Ethan here, he is a great player as well. I want to say he's one of those players who tends to focus on the early mid game. You rarely see him angle towards leads or that kind of late gameplay, preferring to scale up his companies, such as dragoons and footmen and such, trying to keep them alive and get experience. He has some unconventional strategies. He's got some alright map gen. This dragon lair could be huge, because one of the few factions that can actually take dragon lairs casually because of their morale and their ability to mass iron units is Seiya. The other faction that can do it is Royalists with their horse archers and baiting some of the Bretts out with a scout or such. We got two Seiya on the eastern team and one council. And the other Seiya player here is GZ. This guy is an old head. He's been playing for a while. You don't see him around that much anymore, but his unit control is definitely next level. And of course we have Macleod. We're getting pretty familiar with Macleod. He's submitting these replays, and he's also a very strong player. Alright, so map gen, I would say this looks mostly even, depending on if this eastern team can control and actually get these dragon lairs. Initially I had this inclination that it favors the west, but with this being somewhat contested and Seiya player being right here, I think it'll be a pretty good game. Alright, let's get started. We're going to start at 140%, and I'll go ahead and see what their opens are. Alright, and the text is actual people. Okay. We have Cloud. Yep, he's just going to go ahead and yeet his outpost as a backline Seiya player. This is actually pretty okay. Typically I would do that after the healing to see if there's any places I can heal while settling. In this case I don't think there was. And Ethan is Israeli, I believe, so there's sometimes some discussions about that. Depending on where this goes, I may have to put a little black box there. Okay, we have for Macleod, we have Lissa Iran, and Dali is a 2 very good Kohan to have. You have she's perfect on scouts, and this is probably one of the best Dragoons for Kohan for Dragoons in the game. Spell immunity and trailblazing. If she dies, you can pretty much blame yourself. You either overcommitted or you let pathing become an issue, etc. That's the great thing about these spell immune Kohan with like decent defense values, is that really it leaves more to player error, because you can't get frozen, you can't be stunned, you know, and trailblazing means they can't even really be slowed. This player getting Typhon. Now this guy, he's a little bit out of pocket. I want to say they were still rebalancing some of this patch, so I'm not going to give him any gruff for this. He's Kaldonite resistant, spell immune, shadow blessed, and hits an area. His AV values aren't very high, but his scaling is pretty much psychotic, because anytime he deals damage, which I think it's around 32 at level 1, 38 with Shadow Blessing, it can be 2x to 3x depending on how many targets he hits. Now it's a small area, but definitely something worth worrying about. You know what's really nice about this is Sarad is actually surprisingly good at killing dragons because of this unholy damage. Ooh, he needs to get out of there. Luckily he has enough hit points to survive. This nationalist player is getting online. Yep, it's pretty standard open. Quarry. Actually that's not very standard. However, I think he's getting this quarry so that he can build that engineer company and build a stone mine right away, which isn't a bad idea. We got the one sad lone wolf here. Yep, get some free gold there or some tech. Looks like he got some gold. Oh, this Saya player, he's going for some kind of... Okay, I like this opening when you have a forward player such as a nationalist or such like that. You can provide enough support to deflect essentially the entire enemy team in conjunction with his own Dragoon. So he can do that, and he can also rapidly secure these resources that we were pointing out around the map. This scouting is going to be excellent. And this is how you do the opening with two. This is how I do it, at least. With two Kohan, adding a Kohan onto the company later. Fun fact for Shadow Captains, these guys are free. They have 0 unit cost. So switching Kohan in and off of them is actually free also. The only reason it costs 15 gold to switch Kohan is because that's the price of a captain. And Shadow Captains themselves are actually no slouches. Kaldonite resistance is not that great, but this unholy attack, excellent. And I didn't... yeah, that's from the forest. 10 defense value is fine too. Plus, unlike Shadelings, they have 32 movement speed, which is just a weird quirk. I think Shadow Demons generally have 32 movement speed. So we can see this pressure coming out from Mac onto this player. This is the danger of being forward. He's contesting this inside militia range. He's trying to shave down this militia so he can distract and split this player. Now, this is the downside to going this engineer open and skipping scouts, is he just frankly doesn't have much units to spread up. The incredible buff, though, and the militia is making it such that Mac may not be able to outplay this. Unless he can somehow get on top of Ask-Hisk repeatedly. And he is doing some decent splitting here. Threatening his village components. And this Wasp, he's making him choose the lack of 2 companies. And that's what this comes down to. Oh. Wow. That was actually an incredible steal. Finesse the shit out of that. But yeah, once the militia's dead, there's just one banner here, and all you have to do is keep it defending one or the other, and it's more valuable to protect this Iron Depot than to take that Wasp. Putting that player in a lose-lose situation. Okay, and he's taking this out. We have Marok, the werewolf Kohan. Now this is a little zany, and this is where 2.02 is a little zany with Typhon and Marak. But I do want to say these fun Kohan do kind of add an element of joy when you're opening them up. Like, you get kind of excited. It's like getting the SSR rank on a gacha game. He scales very well, and that's kind of where I think, because this 20 defense value as a base is just way too high. However, he has lower hit point totals. This Kyle Denied vulnerability is... You'd think it would be punishing, but there's so few sources of Kyle Denied, and even then 20 DV kind of takes the piss out of that. But that is something that everyone's willing to work on in the community. I know it's been around for a long time, 2.02, but it's certainly a lot of discussion about ways to patch going forward. At least between me and Mac. And that's not to sound pretentious, Macleod and I are probably the most interested in patching. And we're trying to keep it somewhat subtle and true to the spirit of Kohan. Nava. And this seems to be a normal open almost, because we have 2 players on this team. Yeah, 2 players going for Engineer, Goon. I'm not sure if they've opened a scout at all. Maybe they just saw so much value in their immediate area that they didn't need it. Whew, this is certainly worrisome. Typhon can take out so much militia. I think they'll be okay. His goons are within range if they start heading south immediately to deflect. He looks like he wants to wrap around, moving into pressed. Yep, you can see how much is left of these units. I like this adding an extra engineer here to stretch this blessing effect and add more bodies to this comp. Because it's much harder to get... Sorry. It's very beneficial to have 5 units and a fighting Kohan in this company. This wall will add some to the morale of this village. And nationalist villages themselves surrender slower than other villages too, so you may actually see this tick down all the way sometimes. You can see this repairing. This is something that's generally accepted in the community, is you can use engineers to press repair. It's because there's counterplay to it. Pressing and holding units into combat zones is bad, but... Ooh! Wow, losing this. That is a massive loss for the Western team here, because that was almost like a free village, a town that they just default should have gotten. And this is also the downside you get. Again, you see this with 2 teams, both these nationalist players deciding not to get scouts. See, this player opted into a slower timing. He wanted double super scouts. Now, nationalist super scouts are actually pretty good, depending on which Kohan you have. Sadir is a great super scout Kohan. Blessing and lightning. As long as you have 3 back row units that have range, I think super scouts are fairly viable. Because if this gets on top of like a mana unit, like a summoner or a wizard, they'll take him out like right away. Unless they're in press the whole time. The lightning bolt doesn't really care about pressed. So. Yeah. Good raid. Good raid. It's a little bit of damage, but you know, every bit counts. These guys are going quickly into their mana units. They're at 14 minutes. You have to remember I'm at 141%. And some damage done. We're going to slow down here a little bit so I can go ahead and pause after this attack and take account of everyone's economies and see how they've spread out. How much have these units scaled? How much experience? We have a recruit, and 1 regular, and that's with Vargas. This is a very dangerous comp. Look at his damage, 48, 46. It's going down rapidly because he's pressed. That's just good unit control. But yeah, these guys scale so excellently off of experience. And their speed, they can go all over the map. As you can see, he started with his expensive comp, but it's paid for itself and generated a lot of wealth for him. Just being able to take all this stuff out rapidly, you can remember all the wasp layers. Alright, now let's go ahead and take account of economies for a second. Now this player, 260. He's floating a lot. This is especially a lot for a Sil player. It's genuinely just better to just upgrade your villages rapidly. I think this is because he sold from that one. It wasn't this high before that. I'd like to see a lot of settling out of him, and maybe if he could just buy them villages out of from his teammates with more unit cap. As you can see, he's at 5 out of 5 after losing this. This player, this is a lot of mana. I approve of this, right? But he's dipped his economy to do it, and he's pumped it all out of the Saya village, which is town rather, and that's excellent too. He's got a rebuilding plan too, so he's going to be pushing forward and protecting it. But the downside to having all these slow companies right now is there's no fight happening. There's not a point of contention that's been decided, and his enemies have very flexible, fast units. So it's up to him to almost build a bridge and choose a place to fight. Because running these units around deflecting cavalry and such is a massive waste. But ideally what he can do is create some kind of... This is the first contact point. If he can create pressure here, that'd be excellent, but he would need support from a teammate because Super Scout goons, these guys just running into your backline while they're deflecting and raiding villages, etc. Then here we have Purple. Purple is doing good, I want to say. Is this just mass skeletons? Yeah, he's still building up his economy. He's probably going to angle towards those goats as his primary unit comp. Yeah, that's what he's building towards. He's got engineers, and that's what's really biting his economy down, is engineers and shade lanes. But I like that he has them. And this is a dangerous point of contention to maintain when you don't have any tech units. It almost would be ideal if he could get these guys over there, but he'd get raided too hard in return. Especially with, this is all mobility. Going Haroon into skeletons is also not exactly ideal. Not bad, but it's not what you want. Alright, let's resume and at 141 pace. Looks like Mac's swinging for some deep raids. He got in here past a lot of units, whether or not they've scouted him. Ooh, this Royalist town is incredibly juicy. And he sees this right away. He gets deleted. He decides, no, I'm taking this into my own hands, even though Mac probably would have destroyed it himself. Rapidly going down all this militia. And this is because Garage is very good on the offense, and when he has the numbers advantage. Attack being better when you have numbers advantage, defense being better when you have disadvantage in numbers. Which is a concept that's also kind of complicated. Depressing all these units over here isn't ideal, but he has so many good Kohan on them as well. These Spellcaster Hans. I'm surprised he stuck around and fought. I should have kept my camera over here. Yeah. Okay. Garage. I believe these guys could fight it out and win this. But he's probably afraid of losing his Kohan. Let's see, where are you at on experience? He's nearing... This is Ashavir, he's nearing Araman's Gift spell at Enlightened, which I believe is a 2.02 change. They moved it from Restored to Enlightened. I could be wrong about that. Yeah. Vargas is such a beast. When he gets this level here in a second, you'll see his stats just jump up significantly. Every time he gets that regular veteran unit bracket bonus, 110%, he just becomes more and more of a handful. Ashavir is in a lot of trouble here. Oh, and he just gotten the gift. That's a shame. Araman giveth and he taketh away. Appropriate because Saya versus Saya, I guess. Alright, these guys have secured their location pretty heavily, and it looks like that's what he needed to get his feet under him as far economically. I would like to see him fix his iron. Even a blast furnace would be excellent too, because people often ignore that upgrade. But if you're in a deficit and you don't want to build a component in your villages, it's the way to go. Losing Volgari, it's not the worst, but losing this company, no, that's pretty bad. Sidira loss, yeah, that sucks. She does kind of scale in reverse too. She's almost strongest at Awake, because she starts to become this anti-Seiya Kohan, which might actually be very good in this situation, you know? Let's keep her fighting Seiya. But she stops being good against everything else. So I guess you could say it's more lateral than reverse scaling. But if your verse is non-Seiya, it just feels really weird to get this holy lightning bolt that you can't use on them. Monkoff alive. I like putting him on a DPS company to get him experience, so something like Necromancer Wraith would have been nice. And that's a good reason to go like Summoner mixed with Magician, like Summoner and Magician for Nationalist or something, is to get that DPS source. We have a big raid coming out of purple here. He is putting emphasis on those goats. And this should generally favor him over the green player because skeletons just ignore so much of this damage. And also, Shadling Summoners are actually really nice on goats too, because it provides a screen for your ranged units, and that's all these guys really need. And once this guy gets to enlightened, he becomes an absolute terror. This is probably the biggest thing happening on the map right now. This is a lot of damage. But he kind of needs to, because his economy has fell very far behind. He needs to probably do everything. If you're in this situation, negative 12 wood, sell your Carpenter Guild, because this discount doesn't work on goats, and just rapidly try and reboom. Build a wood mill, sawmill. You know, like, you could think, theoretically, I could pump out a temple here, but you don't need it right now. What you need right now is wood. And he also is in a stone deficit, so a mining post even would be okay. Get the rest of your value elsewhere, you know, keep settling. Big fight here. He's trying to settle forward with this fort. Partially healed mana companies. But this is 2 versus many. It's not gonna... Oh, I got the colors mixed up. Yeah, okay, they forced him out. Did they kill one of his Shadow Beast companies? I hope not. Losing Shadow Beast sucks. 1, 2... Yeah. Yeah, because that's so much value and experience, and if it was on... And I think it was Vargas, which especially sucks. Some commentary here. He had to pause in the middle of a fight. That probably caused some... It always chafes someone's ass, honestly. So... Happy to get this Kohan to enlightened. And you can see that this... Archers on scouts get some experience. You don't have to stress about their scaling so much, as long as you do give them time to recover their morale and choose good targets. You can use them as a screen, but you really want her shooting something valuable. Scouts are kind of a force multiplier. You have, especially con scouts, have them fight behind the militia, not in front of the militia, etc. Have them engage around your goons, not in front of your dragoons. We have a kerfuffle here. Ooh, a potentially deadly retreat, depending on how he routes. You don't want to be losing Enlightened Typhon. You can see his hit points already at 1,000, his damage 55. Hitting an area, you can imagine how effective that is. Although versus this unit comp, it's mostly effective versus militia. And potentially these Dragoons, but the Dragoons are a little bit bigger than Skeletons and such, so they don't get splash damage as much. Any more fighting? Mostly a staring contest over here. Everyone's trying to eco out and find some kind of tech advantage. So the West is really banking on these mobile companies getting value, and the East is really banking on their mana companies getting value. This is going to be devastating to the economy of purple. That's what it's going to look like, because this... Yep, there he goes. Already disabled. He either sold or didn't have anything in it to start with. Militia Pop might save it, but even, you can see, just 2 companies of these Shadow Beasts can destroy Militia so fast. Especially with the Shadow Blessing, which is hardly a downside. We have double Shadow Blessed Shadow Beast. Because this is tough. The way that works defensively is, it doesn't really matter what your armor is, almost. Because it provides damage mitigation after the armor. Ravid Skeletons. Shower of Light. Okay. And you can see how much work these forts do to keep units off of them. Mac choosing to match raid efficiency and speed with that, because he's essentially mirrored him getting Super Scouts to fight Super Scouts. But I don't always recommend this. But Mac has such good unit control, it'll probably work out. Because essentially you're building units with less experience versus units with more experience. And Shadow and Super Scouts live and die by their company experience. Oof. Losing Saldana. Now, it's not always important to actually replace your Goat Captain on these, because if you look at a Goat Captain, they're just a strong archer, right? And replacing a strong archer with someone like a Spellcaster isn't always a win. Because he's gonna scale off of company experience too. In this instance, probably worth it because he's up against Seiya. And also, just Chathans are nice. Big kerfuffle. Here we have a big skeleton push into the other players. This can be incredibly lethal, but he has his own skeletons to help deflect, which should be more than enough with the militia. We have skirmishing here. That's what I call it when we have a lot of cavalry fights away from important objectives, usually. Because they're screening and forcing each other to fight. Orange did move up here eventually, because this is the best point of contention, and he wants to protect this location for his ally. The only issue is it does leave him open. But, you know, he seems to be managing that, and the abundance of cavalry from Mac probably gonna let him get in here and help deflect as well. Shamail, not very good in the mirror matchup. This Cloud of Fear, which is buffed in 2.02. A little bit too much, but it doesn't do much against Seiya. Or anything, really. And we have these Wraith Skull. This is actually kind of a fun company. You can just vary your DPS around as you need it. And he's booming behind these cheap companies. He already had frontline, so he just wants DPS for him. Now this is looking dire. Yeah, this is looking very bad. Red doesn't have enough to deflect here. And this is... that was a cornerstone of his strategy. He does still have other towns, luckily, but you can see this economy has just been tanked. Oh, it's from pushing out Double Maelstrom. So Double Maelstrom does work against Shadow Beast in a trench fight. And Maelstrom... sorry, I'm still a little sick. Maelstrom Bone Bows are one of the best companies in the game, I want to say. Because Maelstrom's main weakness is that they don't have good morale, or any morale modifiers or boosts. So fixing that is huge, and Bone Bows do that by themselves. He'll get Shadow Bless on this guy eventually, but he doesn't have any more units to deflect the attacks that are coming his way. And as you can see, the west is expanding more efficiently than the east right now. This is great for the trench warfare, and that's where he's pushing everything right away. But they look like they have nothing to deflect another raid from blue. It's probably what I'd like to see. Just spam summoners north, right? Turn this into a stally, boring engagement while using your very rapid moving companies like these. These guys don't care I'm pressed because they do minimum damage anyway with Shadelings. They just attack kind of fast. And minimum damage is 3 for those who don't know. Shadelings maybe get up to 5 or 6 versus units with 10 DV. Yeah. This is a very stally fight with units, companies gathering experience on the summons behind it. Ethan's probably at Enlightened, but he's probably mostly shooting summons and militia. Excellent AV, you can see that. It'd be really nice if they could get a bunch of slow companies here and free up all these mobile companies. I want to see zealots and summoners making all this stuff just poof, and then some kind of tug of war into mass raiding. Yeah. This is so efficient. I'm probably going to steal this for my own games. Who is this? The Naked One? I really like these companies. If you go Shadow Beast open and you just need some DPS behind it, that's a cheap option, and his economy is absolutely booming. That's good for Seiya, and he can probably fix that -4 mana pretty quick, either with forges, mana forges, or temples, libraries. Mac can't really do anything. This is a wall. This is just outpost after outpost, and lots of units to patrol it. It's probably going to drive him nuts. This is probably very boring. He's kind of playing middle and deflecting probably is what he'll be doing as they secure a better mid line. These raids against purple and orange have been very efficient. All they have to do is hold this. Now, I feel like Zealots are being underutilized by Nationalist players even nowadays. The AoE and the Fear is so potent, and it amplifies everything else you already have. So you really want to get that online as soon as you have 2 to 3 summoner companies, or like in this case, a few goats. He's in a dangerous location. Anywhere on the front line for him is potentially lethal. Oof. This is a winning combination, by the way. You got Lethargy and you have Poison Cloud. 1 second. Alright, sorry about that. Had a call from important business stuff. Alright, we have a big fight here. You see these Maelstroms, they're going to make such a huge difference in this conflict. Especially with this guy casting Terrify on the enemy companies and Shamail. This is where Shamail and Borak kind of shine. You see this grayed out animation. It's Lethargy and it's Cloud of Fear from Shamail and it's Terrify. And as those get painted on these companies, their morales are going to drop so quickly. Even these goons might have some issues dealing with this if they can concentrate all of those on one company than the next. Ideally, you might even want to start engaging behind the militia right here, because if these guys eat those debuffs, you're in a bad place. He does have Zealot, Cleric, Footman, so it's a little bit too late on this, I want to say, because Zealot they have a front line already. They kind of want ranged, and they want outposts. Because Footmen just aren't tanky enough. You kind of want infantry or something to take a few arrow shots, a few blasts from these Maelstrom engines. Every little bit matters when it's AoE damage. For you, we have debuffs going out there, him running into the melee. It's actually kind of nice. But he's got to put a timer on this engagement, because he has to get out of there himself. Look, I think this is going to be a lax control issue here. Agog, getting out. Okay, good. His spell immunity is really helping out there. Not eating a lethargy or a stun or something. Alright, this is getting a little desperate from the orange team. They're running out of front line. and they have new units cycling in. They might be able to components sold. They did. Okay. And here we have blue. They have gone straight into the scariest unit comp. You don't want to see this. Void Beasts are one of the strongest endgame comps in general. They move so fast and hit so hard. This is a threat against pretty much everything. It's kind of nice that they have all these goats and super scouts to deflect, but these guys can side switch so quick and counter almost all the aggression from the other side. These wizards and stuff should actually be able to create a lot of pressure here, especially if he catches these guys switching. And as you can see, they're embracing the Zealot and Maelstrom. The Zealot, Summoner, Magician. This is a lot of DPS coming out of these guys. All being amped and amped and amped. The economy of the Western faction is just so much larger. I think that's a lot to do with management. Although I did say they had favorable generation. This is a death blob. I don't know what stops this. And you know what? He could make so much more of these companies if he's willing to tank his economy. And just another one of those 2 Void companies or something hanging out right here would probably end that push too. These goats can work these units down slowly, but they need a front line. It doesn't look like they're gonna get one. Yep, and even the struggle here is favoring orange a little bit. A little bit surprised at blue's unit composition. Mac unable to make too much happen on his side. Protection goons with some experience. No, these are second goon company. They actually don't do that great against militia, as you can see. They can be countered by just a little bit more. And we have this death blob here, still doing damage, still splitting up, pushing. We have Enlightened. Yep, this is the end of the game here. It just took too long. Now your candy's gone. I got Void Beast. Yep. So that was an interesting game. I think the Western team investing heavily in mobility was smart. The Eastern team seemed to fail to actually control the middle of the map, which would have been their way into having a good aggressive line and forcing those cavalry units into conflicts they don't want to be in. A little more anti-raid would have been excellent too, because you can tell that every little raid kept creating more and more space for the Western team. Macleod, he did what he could in the south, but he kind of got, I want to say, I got stuck in this like Pyrrhic fight where even if he want to fight, it wouldn't do much. Because it would just be even exchange of my units to your units, and as long as if he was defending, that was fine, but he couldn't get anything really together. Especially with his he was not the one given all the cards this game. I want to say orange, his overinvestment in those slow companies early game probably is one of the deciding factors. If you guys are far away from an enemy front line and you see all these like fast moving units, you kind of want to build something to match that aggro so you can boom behind it. He didn't have the space to make villages and settlements because of the pressure applied from blue. Especially blue just went from one mobile company to the next mobile company. All the while he started adding skeletons to tank for the nationalist player against these goats, and the green player had all these goats, but they were kind of stuck in a trench fight, which is not why you build goats. Wind Riders, these ranger companies that can move around at 32 movement speed, trailblazing, Calvinite damage from the rangers, and the goat captain himself. Just firing for regular damage, but that's a lot of DPS scaling out. They're really good when you can swing them around. And in this circumstance, if he had built more mana in the north, he would have been able to create even more pressure that way. But he was on the winning side. Just a small criticism for how and why you might build goats. And on the other side, just an underinvestment. in scouts and footmen, things that could really slow down these shadow beasts, and yeah, it's mobility versus less mobile comps. And that's something you see in these 4v4s. Alright, pretty big tirade. We played this mostly at 141%, but I think it was a good game. So thank you for joining me for another episode of Kohan Duels. I hope you guys have a great Labor Day. Alright, peace.